Hello and welcome to episode number 6 of This Mortal Life. As promised, I've invited my friend Meg Aris on. Meg has a company called Wise Moves with Meg. She's a somatic coach. I met her in a mind body coaching program a couple of years ago, and we've become very close and very good friends. We've decided to put together a course on grief. It's going to be a little bit of a ritual, a little bit of teaching, and a little bit of processing in our bodies. And I just am very excited about the course, and I'm very excited to have Meg on the show. So here we go. Hi, Meg.
Hi, Susan.
It's so good to see you. And I am so happy that you are here with me.
Oh, thank you so much for bringing me in today. I'm so happy to be with you anytime.
Well, thank you. So I want you to tell us how this all came about, if you will.
Oh, how this all came about. Hmm. I'm suspecting you mean the all came about is how I got to the moment I am in now to be working with you and sharing and showing up in the different ways of somatic coaching and mindful movement.
Yes, please tell us.
Um, really, I was thinking about this a little bit over the last couple of weeks. Like, when we're introducing ourselves and it's like our story, and we have to tell our story, and our story is always unfolding. And there's so many parts of our story, there's so many versions of how we got to where we are right now. But I think one of the big ones for me actually I've been a movement teacher for 20 years. And yes, like my 20-year anniversary this year, which is kind of cool. But I think a big shift and transformation came for me in 2015. I was just flying by, feeling so good about the work I was doing in movement, teaching yoga, mindful movement of different kinds, studying and learning and growing, and had this community in Victoria where I lived. And had this little minor rear end accident happen, just a little fender bender. But I have an autoimmune disease that I grew up with, and my body just spiraled out of control. I just was riddled with inflammation through my entire body. I really didn't feel good. I was really struggling and had pretty bad whiplash. And I'd never, even though I'd, you know, lived with pain for most of my life, this was so different. And I just couldn't get a hold of myself. And then I got rear ended again in the same year. So it was two times. And the second one was a hit and run, which was, added stress to that. And the second time I got hit, I remember the moment of impact when this truck hit me. I just knew. I was like, I'm not going to bounce back. I knew it was like this sinking feeling in my heart. I'm like, okay, here we go. And I started to cry because I knew that I was already at the edge of what my body could tolerate. And I was right. And everything got a lot worse, lot worse. And I'm a big advocate for holistic health. And I was doing everything in my power to try to find the answers within myself through movement therapy, through diet, through alternative medicine. Eventually, I did end up taking some meds as well from allopathic medicine. The biggest shift came because I had a friend reach out to me and say, have you ever explored somatic experiencing? I hadn't, I didn't know what that was, but I went to go see this person and I had no idea what I was walking into. It was so subtle. And I thought, this is not helpful. I literally walked out of the appointment going, that looked nice, but I didn't really learn anything. I don't know if you've ever been in that situation where I just didn't have the beginner's mindset in that moment. And it wasn't until a couple weeks later, sharing about this appointment with a friend, that I just hit me in the forehead. And I was like, oh my gosh, this person knew exactly what they were doing. My body was asking for and wanting something to crack me open and transform this struggle that I was in. And that was the exact opposite of what I needed. I needed to find safety in my surroundings. I needed to slow down everything. I needed to not keep searching outside of myself for someone to help me or to fix me, but to learn how to be with myself and how to regulate my nervous system essentially. And so I went back to go see this person, and then I went again and again. And then he and his wife were hosting an in person event, and I went to that, and it was amazing. And then I just went down the rabbit hole of studying nervous system health, somatic practices. And suddenly my practice as a movement teacher transformed into this much more complex and whole experience that brought in the whole person, all of them, who they are in the world, how they show up, how they relate to their surroundings, to their life experiences, what has happened in their past that has brought them to this exact moment. And so for myself, for my own personal journey, it wasn't like all of a sudden I was okay. It took me a couple of years of slow recovery to find strength again, to recover my body. And it's always an ongoing process. It's still part of my story. As I said earlier, constantly we're in this evolution of ourselves. That was the turning point for bringing me into this world of work where there's room for all of us, all parts of ourselves, every part of you being welcome here.
Oh, thank you so much. As you're talking, I'm thinking about my own experience with how I came to this work, a little bit similar, but in terms of grief. I had so much grief and it was consuming my whole life. I wasn't able to function with the grief that I was carrying. And it was the same thing. It was like a whole body processing. And I kept searching for the answers. And it wasn't up here, it wasn't from the shoulders up. I learned that it was a whole body experiencing it, that I had to slow down and feel it in my body for it to start healing. I had to literally slow down. It's kind of like what you said, as it just really resonated with me in my own healing too, which kind of brings us together to this thing that we're doing on the 21st.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for asking, Susie, and also sharing your experience of your process and working with grief and that idea of being with our body, because that is part of what we are coming together for, is to share this experience with those that are grieving or have experienced grief or in grief. I'm saying those things and I'm kind of laughing at myself because there's always some part of us that is in it, right? It's like we walk with it.
I'm just
Uh,
thinking about all the grief that you had throughout those 10 years, like 10 years since it's been about 10 years, and how much grief you've carried and still carry, having an autoimmune disease and the struggles that you've had as such a young woman.
it's just like grief shows up in so many different ways in our lives. And, you know, whether it's an acute experience that has been very big traumatic, if we want to say it that way, or whether it's something that we have kind of dragged along our entire lives. It lives inside of us, it lives in our body. And so learning tools so that we can resource ourselves, so that we can have the best chance of living a full and beautiful life. It's so important, and it's just not talked about enough.
It's not. I think I want to touch a little bit because I haven't really talked about this in the podcast, but the things that we grieve, because there's 6 different things we grieve. I'll go through them really quickly. Everything we love, we lose, which is what everybody thinks about. You lose your spouse, you lose your dog, you move out of your house, you lose your job. Everything we love, we lose. But there's also the parts of ourselves, the outcast parts of ourselves that were never loved. We grieve for that. We grieve for unmet expectations, things that we expected and didn't receive. As far back as when we're little, the safety, belonging, and dignity that we all needed. If we didn't get that when we were little, we carry that grief with us. Ancestral grief, just like trauma gets passed down from our ancestors. We have ancestral grief. We grieve for the sorrows of the world. There's so much grief out there right now. Everything that's happening around us, the polar bears, the planet, the people that are in war. We grieve for the harm we've done. When we hear that, if I knew better, I would have done better. We did the best we could, but yet we still grieve for what we didn't do right. If we were bullies when we were little, if we were abusive to our siblings, if we weren't a good parent, and we know better now, we grieve what we could have done better. So there's none of us walking around in this world that isn't carrying grief. So we're all grieving. We're all grieving all the time. And in my mind, this whole idea, especially in the United States, it's written into our Constitution, this pursuit of happiness.
Mhm.
And so what we do with all of this grief is just say that there's something wrong with that. There's a problem with the fact that I'm feeling sad about this. And so
Mhm.
people aren't processing their grief. They're putting it away. We're losing like the compassion that we could have for each other because we don't want to feel sad. We're just in this pursuit of constant happiness and joy. And grief is just something that is such a powerful teacher in life. And it's such an important part of this human experience. One thing I listened to Mary Frances O'Connor, and she said that grief is a great way to get to know your body.
Yes, yes, especially when with an acute grief, it's so overwhelming how it shows up in our body, and we can't escape that, right? But some of these other ways that grief shows up, we hide it, we suppress it, and it doesn't mean that it's not there. It doesn't mean that it's not in our body. It's just that we're not giving room or space for it. We're charging through, pushing on, and eventually those things that we've covered over, or suppressed, or repressed, they start to bubble through in ways that often don't feel good to us. And if we keep ignoring them, it'll start to show up in ways that are unavoidable.
Like fatigue, insomnia, addiction, overeating, over
Mhm.
anything.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Or autoimmune disease.
Or autoimmune disease. In fact,
Yeah, for
Mary Frances
example.
O'Connor, I bring her up because I just got through reading this book called The Grieving Body. And
Yeah.
when her mother died, part of her investigating and scientific exploration is because right after her mom died and through her grief, she was diagnosed with MS.
Yeah.
And so she's constantly wondering if grief caused her MS.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Yeah.
there are some studies that are indicating that probably had a
Yeah.
big part of it. In fact, she says that if you are diabetic, like borderline diabetes or borderline Alzheimer's or borderline anything, and then you have an acute grief, that those things will come to the surface. It's
Mhm.
literally a body experience. Grief is a bodily experience.
Mhm. Yeah. That's right. That's right. Because when we have that kind of experience happen to us, and there's already the coding in our genetics for these expressions of illness, these traumas or experiences will, exacerbate any inflammation that is in our body, and these things just start to percolate and come out to the surface. And I think that that's what comes up to mind for me in this moment, also thinking about like how does that show up in our body? I think sometimes we have this expectation of what grief should look like. And, maybe the image of someone that is in a dark room, balled up in a corner, and uh, not speaking or crying. And grief takes on a lot of forms in our body. And yes, that's one of them. But it can also look like needing to lash out at things or needing to run or needing to find different ways to move through the sensations, the emotions that are coming through. And it's not just one way, right? Sometimes it's soft and gentle, and sometimes it's like a ferocious storm.
It can look like perfectionism, over cleaning, not being able to sit still. I'm having this feeling, I better get up and do something.
And yeah, exactly.
We've
Exactly.
been taught this. We've been taught how to do grief incorrectly. We're super grief illiterate, right? So we've been taught, I call it brats. So stay busy, replace
Mm,
the loss. Go, there's more fish in the sea. Go get a new one,
mm,
replace the loss. Grieve alone. Go to your room if you're going to cry, grieve alone. Time heals. Just give it some time. It'll get better with time. Stay strong for others. You're the man of the house now. You've got to be strong for your mom. We're not taught how to have a feeling.
yeah.
And so when grief happens to us, whether it's that we lost a job or we got married and we lost the dream of becoming that professional musician or nurse or whatever, there's grief, surrounding those unmet expectations. What do we do with that grief if we don't know what to do with it and we haven't been taught?
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right, Susie. When we haven't been taught, and I think there's this big fear for a lot of us that if we do let ourselves feel, that we will never stop that feeling. That if we let ourselves be angry, if we let ourselves be sad, that it will never end and we'll never recover from that place. And that's just simply not the truth. That's not how emotions work. They are transient. They are transient. They come and they go. And when we actually give room and give space for their expression, they actually move a lot faster.
Right.
Mm.
Isn't that the only way that they move is when we allow them to? So when I became a coach, I learned the first coaching, as you know, was all mind thought work, just thought work. And I think thought work is really powerful in some coaching instances, like when someone says, I'm old, I'm too old. That could be a thought that's not serving them,
Yeah.
right? But with grief and emotions, there's no amount of thinking that we should or could do to change it.
Mhm.
And the way I've been taught is very gaslighting. We start to gaslight ourselves by saying, well, I'm just going to change my thought about that. Like, I'm really upset about that. I'm just going to have a different thought and I'll change how I feel. And
Yeah.
I just disagree with that whole philosophy. Through working with you, actually, learning how to process things and learning more about emotions, I've learned that I don't think our emotions come from our thoughts. I think our thoughts come from our emotions.
Yeah, and it creates a mismatch in ourselves when we tell ourselves, like, if we start to try to change our mindset, but we don't actually believe it, it creates a mismatch inside of ourselves, which can make it even more confusing for us because, as you said, then we're gaslighting ourselves, but it creates friction within us. And then we spiral. And so we have to meet ourselves exactly where we are. Yeah. And we can change our thoughts, absolutely. And that impacts the body, remembering that the mind is part of the body. But we can also do this from the body up. It actually goes both directions, right? And for many of us, though, we're always trying to do it from our heads and we get stuck. We get to a certain place and we get stuck. And if we were to learn how to do this from the ground up, then we would have this place where there's more information, first of all, for us to make decisions on, to choose how we want to show up or what we want to do with our time. And as well as having more information, we would also have a much bigger language to work with, that it's not just the language of our mind, it's the language of our body, and it speaks in a very different way. And we have to learn that language.
Yeah. Yeah. I see grief as and I'm talking so much about grief because we're doing this course on grief. And so I'm bringing it into the conversation because I really do hope that people get inspired to sign up for our class on the 21st of June, this 2025, and learn a little bit of these skills and using grief as a catalyst to listen to our bodies. I think that grief, there's so many gifts to grief. It's such a beautiful part of the human experience, and it's something that we have tried to push away, and yet we can use it as a learning tool to get in touch with who we are in our bodies, and it's a door to open into deeper understanding of this human experience. Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me. Absolutely. Reflecting back on my own story of coming into this type of work, you know, some might say, like, looking at me having grown up with an autoimmune disease as a child, that, yeah, there's a lot of grief there for that, but it's also been my greatest inspiration. And I think grief can be like that as well, that it can offer a gateway for us into the next part of who we're becoming, right? And maybe we don't start there. I certainly didn't. And then have, spent many, many years resisting the body that I'd been given, many, many, many years. And and then things changed. And there was a place for compassionate understanding and to be with who I actually am. Yeah. The body that I actually live in. And I think grief is very much like that too, when we can meet it where it is and be with it, be with the somatic experience, the body experience of it. And it can lead to some really beautiful places.
Yeah. I had a client one time ask me, "Does anything good ever come from grief?"
Yeah.
And I was at that time, I was in a class with Francis Weller. It was a worldwide course. There was like 800 of us in class with him. And my answer was, I think there's about 800 people that I'm in class with right now that would say yes. You know, as we learn more about grief, the more we realize that there is so much of the gifts of grief and how it brings us closer to source, how it brings us closer to what we're feeling in our bodies. And sharing grief actually connects us with others. So
Yeah.
it's a way to connect. And it's just, one of the hardest things that we ever go through, you know? It's one of the
Yeah.
hardest things we ever go through as people. And yet it is like the initiation into wisdom, right? It's that place where wisdom comes from. Wisdom comes from grief.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. The initiation into wisdom. Absolutely. That's exactly right.
So talk to me about Saturday, the 21st.
So, looking forward to this experience. The invitation is for everyone to join us in the Zoom room online. I know for you and I both that we so appreciate when people come and they show up with their full face and on screen and with their audio ready to share. And I think there's room for everybody to come exactly as they are and in the place that they are. And we're going to gather, we're going to share a little bit about our experiences, about why we're here, which we've shared some of that today, and I think there's more to be told there, other parts of our stories. We want to offer a ritual practice to bring everyone in, because that's one of the things that's really missing about the way that we come to grief in our society right now, is the ritual part of it. And so bringing in the ritual component, learning a little bit more about how grief shows up in the body and what it is, what it isn't. Yeah. An opportunity for those who feel called, who feel compelled to share, that we'll invite you in to use your voice. And I know that can feel really scary. And I also know that when we do, again, there's a catalyst there for major healing that can happen. And then we're going to drop into body practice. And I'm really looking forward to leading that. And again, it's about meeting yourself exactly where you are. So there'll be choice with every turn, with every movement. There will be choice to be with the way you are right now. You know, there's no right way.
Who do you see as a potential person to join us on Saturday? I believe everybody is carrying grief that in my mind, I'm not thinking that it has to be an acute grief. This is for everyone.
Yeah, I hear that too, Susie. I completely agree. I think it is for everyone who is curious and who wants to peek behind the veil, you know, to see how else could I carry this. Yeah. So whether it is an acute grief or just the recognition of the grief that is held in the world or in your body, whether it's the recognition of the grief of the people around you, and wanting to do something about that. So I think if you're resonating with this conversation, the only prerequisite is curiosity.
Yeah. People might be worried about, like, I don't want to go to any kind of movement class.
Totally. I completely understand that. And again, it's absolutely about choice. And this isn't like a fitness class. It's not. I think it's not going to be like that. It's an opportunity to get curious inside your body, to go at the pace that feels right for you. There'll be an opportunity to go really, really, really slow. Or if you need to go fast, to go really fast too. And all of that is okay. Yeah.
I'm really super excited, and I have to say that you are probably one of my most favorite people I've ever had in my entire life, and so getting to spend getting to spend 90 minutes with you, watching you and learning and growing with you and from you, I can't even wait. I can't believe it. I get to be a part of this. I'm so excited.
Oh, Susie, I feel 100% the same. Like I couldn't be more excited about sharing this space with you and the wisdom, the collective wisdom that will come from not just the two of us, but everyone that comes to join us because we all bring something, and we are so much more than the sum of our parts. And I can't wait. I can't wait to do this together.
Me too. And I just have to say like the final thing I want to say about Saturday is that we are in such deep need for connection with each other. And so this is going to be this offer is such a way for us to all really hold space for each other. And that's what grief needs. It needs witnessing, acknowledging, and processing. And so if you feel like you have something that's inside of you, whether it's what's happening in the United States politically, or whether it's the environment, or whether it's something more personal for you, this will be a very, very healing space for all of us.
Mm. Yeah. Lastly, I just want to say all parts of you are welcome. There's no emotion that will be too big for us to hold.
Thank you. Thank you so much,
Mhm.
Meg.
Thank you, Susie. Thanks for inviting me today. I'm so happy to be here and be with your community and be sharing together and
Tell me,
with
Meg,
you and the
right
others.
before we hang up, can you please, if people want to learn more about you, or how do they find you?
Oh, thank you so much. You can find me at wisemoveswithmeg.com. That's my website. Or on Instagram, it's at wisemoveswithmeg. And that's me. It's just me there. So come and find me. All different types of ways to connect and keep going.
And how do people work with you?
I do a lot of one-on-one coaching, whether that is mindful movement coaching or more mind body somatic coaching. I have both of those offers. And then I do have some group movement classes that I love to run. I call them wise movement classes because it's often those that are looking for a different way of moving their body that is an intelligent movement, that is thoughtful, mindful, connecting. and we're not rushing through things, and they're really fun. And I have a couple of classes that I do that way online as well.
So, well, I'll put those in the show notes, and I will see you on the 21st of June.
Yeah, see you on the 21st. Thank you
Okay.
again, Susie.
Bye.
Bye.
Thunder and news hits me like a snowball striking my face and shattering, covering me in fine powdery mist and mixing in with my tears. I'm 57 and I could be 7 years old, 'cause I will never be able to comprehend the expansiveness of what I just learned. That you have disappeared, you have been released, you are flecks of light, you are mist. Somewhere spinning round the sun, circling the moon, traveling through time, you are mist. Walking through unfamiliar streets, and I'm shaking unfamiliar hands. I'm hearing unfamiliar laughs and lovely language I don't understand. It's late October in Copenhagen. The skies are gray, the snow is falling. I see my breath outside. I'm freezing, I'm motionless in disbelief that you have disappeared. You have been released. You are flecks of light. You are mist. Somewhere spinning round the sun, circling the moon, traveling through time. You are mist.